Welcome to the Big O Show on the Overreaction Sports Network, powered by Believe.
Still the same damn kid from Oklahoma, same old dreams hanging off my shoulders, just wishing and waiting on a shooting star for all to see.
And now your host, straight out of Oklahoma, former Buffalo Bill, Jerry Ostrowski.
I'm still the same damn kid from Oklahoma.
Welcome in, everybody. It is Thursday night, 8 Eastern, 7 Central Time. That can only mean one thing here on the Overreaction Buffalo Sports Network, powered by Believe. It is the Big O Show, and I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in. We took a little bit of a hiatus for a couple of weeks. Last week was going to be on, had a little situation, had to cancel the show, but we are back, and we plan to be on weekly here on Overreaction Buffalo. And as my graphic said before the show, folks, as the great Robert Earl Keen sang, the road goes on forever, but the party never ends. And unfortunately, we are amongst another Buffalo Bills offseason as we now turn our eyes to the 2025 season. And as we try to get ready for the upcoming year, we will have to suffer through Sunday afternoon, Sunday night. But hey, that's the way it goes. So today's show, what we're going to do, we're going to talk a little bit of Buffalo Bills current news, some things going on over at One Bills Drive, some other topics that are pertinent to the Buffalo Bills at this moment. Then I'm going to start something new. We plan to be here for a long time, the Overreaction Buffalo Network, and we're going to have our first annual Big O Show Tatonka Awards. Tatonka, a Native American term for buffalo or bison. And it'll be 5 guys that I give awards to today that had really, really good seasons and were difference makers for the Buffalo Bills this year. So we'll get into that here in a little bit. But as always, if you're watching on Facebook or watching on your phone on X, hop over to YouTube and get in because we've got comments over there. Richard's in, Daniel's in. If you want to get into comments, if you got a good question, ask it. If it's pertinent to what's going on, we'll talk about it. I'll answer those questions as best as I can. But as always, folks, our network's growing, and it's growing because of you. So if you would, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. It helps us out. Tell your friends, pass it on, word of mouth, and let everybody know that Overreaction Buffalo, we'll be here all off season. We'll have 3 shows a week, and we'll be diving into what's important with the Buffalo Bills this offseason as far as salary cap, roster building, the draft, obviously, and all those types of things. But some news coming out of One Bills Drive, some things that are going on. Obviously, tonight after the show, I'm not holding my breath, folks. It is what it is. Miracles have happened. But tonight, the MVP of the NFL will be announced. And hopefully the voters have looked at this thing through clear eyes and a clear mind and have seen just what Josh Allen meant to the Buffalo Bills and the fact that they got to the AFC Championship game with the roster that they had, and the fact that Josh played 11 quarters less than Lamar. I mean, you've heard all the different statistics from all the different content creators and national media about this MVP race. I don't have to repeat them or, be redundant as far as this goes. But we know as the Mafia just what Josh Allen means to this football team. And if he's not on that team this year or cannot play, what does that season look like? I think we all know what it looks like, folks. And it's not very good. But like I said, tonight, 9 Eastern time, 8 Central, after the show, the MVP will be announced. The NFL awards will be announced, the Rookies of the Year and all that stuff, Coach of the Year. So if you want to tune in, maybe we'll all be surprised. Maybe we'll all be shocked. I'm kind of going the route of, I expect that he doesn't win. I expect Lamar to win. So if he does win, and Josh gets the award, I'll be ecstatic. I'll be happy. I'll be surprised. That's just the way I'm doing it. So if I go in with a huge amount of optimism and it doesn't happen, I'll be bummed out. But this way, at least I've prepared myself. So tonight, MVP award will be announced. You can check that out on TV. Other news, the Buffalo Bills have announced Western New York native Jason Rabovich. He's coming over from the Green Bay Packers. He will now be the new Bills assistant defensive line coach. Like I said, he's from Clarence, Western New York guy. Should fit in great with the Bills. He will take the assistant defensive line coaching position there with Buffalo. Also rumored to happen, has not been officially announced, but former Jacksonville Jaguars and Atlanta Falcons defense coordinator Ryan Nielsen is probably going to join the Bills as a senior defensive analyst. He spent 6 seasons with the New Orleans Saints as a defensive line coach and co-defense coordinator. Read into this what you will. 2 guys coming in. Both guys work on the defensive side of the ball. Both guys, defensive line guys. So obviously, defensive line, a huge emphasis area for Buffalo. We'll talk about it as the offseason goes on. We'll get into theory and all those types of things. But if the Bills stay in the 4-2-5 defense, which I fully fully estimate or fully guess that they will, with the fact that Sean McDermott, that's what he runs, this is a team that's got to get better up front. You got to be able to get pressure with 4 guys. That defensive line has to be a bunch of dogs, which leads me to my last thing I want to talk about as far as Bills news goes. You saw the news earlier this week. Myles Garrett of the Cleveland Browns, he wants to be traded. And right away, boom, who's the first team on the list that everybody talks about? The Buffalo Bills. Knowing the need that we have a defensive end, a defensive line, Myles Garrett in red, white, and blue would be absolutely amazing. And this is the thing I want to talk about for a little bit before I get into the Tatonka Awards, the first annual Big O Show Tatonka Awards, which we'll get into here on the second half of the show. You know, you talk about players in the NFL. You got guys that are journeymen. You got guys that are role players. You got good players. You even got some great players. And then you have what they call generational talent. Talent that ends up in Canton. Talent that you don't see all the time. Myles Garrett is a generational talent. Size, speed, bend. He has everything. Power. I mean, this is a guy that comes fully furnished. He's like an Airbnb of defensive ends. You pay your rental price, and you get a hell of a place to stay in for the week. That's Myles Garrett. He comes as advertised. My theory on this, what it takes to get Myles Garrett, you do it if you're Brandon Beane. You get Myles Garrett in a Bills uniform. I know that the likes of Deion Dawkins and some other guys are already recruiting and trying to get Myles Garrett to come to Buffalo. You know, you look at this thing, and there's a lot of people that right away are talking about it's going to take 3 first-round picks to get this done. I thought about it at first and thought maybe that was the case. Honestly, I don't think that is the case. I think this is a situation where you've got a player that it's kind of like right now with Myles Garrett and the Cleveland Browns, honestly, if they want to move Myles Garrett, now's the time to do it because it's like trading a car with 95,000 miles as opposed to 105,000 miles. When you trade a car in before 100,000 miles, you get a much better deal than you do over 100,000 miles. Myles Garrett is south of 30. He will turn 30 years old December 2025, I believe. So with that being the case, you know, if you're the Browns, you move him now because you're going to get more capital for him as opposed to moving him after he's 30. That's just the way the league is. 30's the Mendoza line. But if you look at Myles Garrett, I mean, I don't think it's going to take 3 first-round picks. Probably 2. maybe 1 and a bunch of 2s and 3s and things like that. But when I look at the Buffalo Bills, this is a team that cannot afford to try to develop more talent. They need talent to come in and be developed. Josh will be going on year 8, I believe. You know, he's starting to creep to 10 years in the league. The talent's not getting any younger. And if you look at the history of the Bills through the last so many drafts, it's not per se that they're hitting 1,000 or batting 1,000 in developing early round draft picks. Why that is? Well, you could say it's because the Bills have been good and most of their picks have been below 25 or below 30. If you look at some other things, you know, you can say, well, it's been injury and guys have had bad luck like Keon Coleman this year. But the fact is this. Brandon Beane has been really, really successful drafting players from round 3 down. 50-50 in rounds 1 and 2, pretty much. Jury's still out on Kincaid. Keon Coleman, who seemed to be showing promise, gets the injury. All of a sudden, he doesn't come back or respond very well at all from that injury. So when you look at this, can you afford to keep draft picks? And we want to stockpile picks. We talk about it all the time. Did it last year. Stockpile picks. We're going to try to get higher draft picks or move out of 1 to get a high 2, whatever you want to talk about. I mean, it's been talked about ad nauseum. But the fact of the matter is they cannot stand to sit around and develop more players. They've got to get guys right now. If I said, you know what, we're in the top 15 in the first round, then maybe things change a little bit. Ralph Wilson Sr. talks about Hendrickson from Cincinnati. I really like Hendrickson as well. I mean, I think he is a guy that is another option for Buffalo if the Myles Garrett thing doesn't work out. I agree he's younger. He's a hell of a pass rusher. But he's also light. He's not – Myles Garrett is huge as far as the defensive end goes. And – we need to get some size on defense. If we strike out as far as the premier defensive ends go in the league, and people are talking about Max Crosby, I like Hendrickson as well. Right now, to me, if we couldn't get a Myles Garrett to come in here, which I think is a no-brainer, if you get it done, you get it done. If we can't get a Myles Garrett in, I would turn my eyes to Hendrickson, because he brings that pass rush ability. I think he's even better pass rusher than Max Crosby. Max, who I love, is probably 3rd on my list, but you look at price tags, and I don't know if Max's cap number can correlate as well. I think Myles Garrett cap number correlates as well as any of them. Now, granted, he comes in, you got to rework contracts, all that stuff. But they need to get some power up front. If we do strike out on all the defensive end guys we try to bring in, there's others as well. And we'll study those guys and we'll talk about them in a later show. We'll have options as far as ready to go, game bred, game ready defensive ends. I don't want to talk about the draft right now because the last thing the Bills need to me is a bunch more guys to develop. We're picking too late. Yes, you can find a diamond in the rough, but the way that scouting is nowadays, nobody's hiding, man. They know where all the good players are. You can't hide somebody, but you can go out and get some late round guys. We need difference makers now. And we'll talk about those guys throughout the league that maybe if you strike out on these 3, you go ahead and you turn your eyes to these dudes. If it is that we do strike out on defensive ends, we've got to find a true blue, nasty 2 technique inside. Because the best way to help your defensive ends and pass rush is you got to rush. To me, the best pass rush is up the middle. Premier defensive ends on the outside are great. Up the middle pressure, flushing quarterbacks, all those things is to me very, very good. So if we don't get one of these premier defensive ends, eyes got to turn to a nasty 2, somebody inside that can get pressure up the middle, make plays, run stopper, somebody that maybe commands a little more attention from the offensive line, double team wise, to try to get Ed singled up to where he can use his athleticism. I never was a proponent of two fast guys or two big guys. I like a mix. Kind of go back to the days when I played. You had a Henry Thomas and you had John Randall. Randall was a slasher and the goer. Henry Thomas was the guy that ate blocks. I just think that works really, really well. So, me, no brainer. If you can get Myles Garrett, you get him. If you can't get Myles Garrett or one of these other premier defensive ends like a Max Crosby or a Hendrickson or somebody, you turn your eyes inside to the best two technique you can get. So we'll talk a little bit about that more as the Big O Show goes along through the offseason. We will get into the draft, but right now, to me anyway, when I look at this team, they've got to figure out a way to trade for some talent. So anyway, we're going to move on right now, and I talked about it before the show. I'm going to do this every year. We plan to be around for a while. And everybody over in the comments, Ralph Wilson Sr., you're awesome. You're here almost every week. I appreciate you. Maggie, Bella, Daniel, Sal, Victor, everybody in the comments, join in, throw something up there. If it's good, I'll put it on the show or we'll talk about it. You guys are what makes the show go, and we thank you as always. Again, hit the like, hit the subscribe as we grow this thing. John and Joe will be on later in the week. I'm sure we'll do a Sunday show, talk about some things. Probably talk a little bit about what's coming up here later on the NFL Network at 9 p.m. Eastern. That being the NFL awards, we'll find out if voters actually really do pay attention to things like the how a team is built and rosters and things like that. And we'll see what happens with the MVP race. But I want to talk about my 2024 Big O Show Tatonka Awards. Obviously, like I said, Tatonka, Native American term for buffalo, bison. And these guys, and I got 5 guys on this list. We're going to pick 5 every year. These are guys that I think went above and beyond for the Buffalo Bills this year. Not all these guys are superstars. Not all these guys are noticed, but they were absolute difference makers when it came to the 2024 season for the Buffalo Bills. If we didn't have these guys, things would have been different. So without further ado, let's go ahead and start this thing. So my first Tatonka Award for the Big O Show goes to right tackle Spencer Brown. And I don't know if many people understand just how good of a season Spencer Brown had. Obviously, the Bills did because of what they paid him in the extension. And really, folks, I could probably say our entire offensive line deserves a Tatonka Award. I think that offensive line, besides Josh Allen, were the difference makers of this football team this year. We have not said that in a very, very long time in Buffalo. I think that Coach Cromer and this offensive line were amazing this season. And I thought that the development of Spencer Brown was the key piece, even more so than McGovern moving the center, a smart, heady David Edwards going to left tackle, a second year of Torrance progressing and moving forward. And we all know about Deion, man. Deion's like the sun coming up in the morning. He's a constant, and he's going to do what he does. But when you look at Spencer Brown, 1,140 total snaps played. He only allowed 1 sack this season in 1,140 snaps. 4 quarterback hits, 16 hurries, and 22 pressures in 1,140 snaps. And as you'll hear John and I say all the time, you know, people talk about guys, he didn't play very well. He played against, you know what? The other guys, you hear us say this all the time. The other guys get paid as well, meaning they're good too. And to have these kind of numbers at right tackle is absolutely phenomenal. When you look at Spencer Brown's PFF grade, and like I said all the time on the show, PFF is not the be-all, end-all of grading systems. Obviously, it's not the way that the teams grade. But when you look at his grade for PFF this season, his overall grade, when you add run blocking and pass blocking together, was 77.9%. They start at 60, and then how they do things, they go from there. That 77.9% was an 8% upgrade from the season before. In his first 2 years in the league, he was in the 50s. That's the type of progression that Spencer Brown has made at right tackle for the Bills. And me personally, it's twofold. One is Cromer working technique with Brown and getting Brown to play pretty much almost flawless technique. His technique is phenomenal. He plays square to the line of scrimmage. He doesn't get out of position. His pass pro techniques and his pass pro has got exponentially better from year 1 to year 4. I think a big part of that is due to the fact he's healthy. He had the back issues when he first came in, got him taken care of. Now he's healthy. He's got full off seasons to not only work in the weight room, but work on his craft. And Spencer's technique has been phenomenal. The former third rounder out of UNI, University of Northern Iowa, go Panthers. My son's an assistant offensive line coach there. My younger son is a defensive end there. So I've got a lot of love for Northern Iowa and Cedar Falls, Iowa. All my Iowa people out there, much love. But when you look at him, he's been healthy this season. And the thing I love about Spencer Brown is he plays on the edge and he plays with a physical presence. Defensive ends know where he is because he will strike you if you're not paying attention. And that is a big deal because an offensive lineman's job, other than blocking, is to make a defensive lineman forget about where the football is and be worried about what's going to happen to him by the guy that's lined up in front of him. Spencer does that. Just a huge jump from, like I said, from his first 3 years to this year. So my first Tatonka award for the 2024 Tatonka Awards goes to right tackle Spencer Brown. Round of applause. Great season. My second Tatonka award goes to cornerback Christian Benford. Benford is probably one of the most well-rounded corners in the league. He can play man. He can play zone. And if you watch how he plays, there's probably, cornerbacks in this league that are more physically talented than him. And when I say that, I mean athleticism-wise, his technique, again, second player I'm talking about, technique is marvelous. His trail techniques, his man technique, zone, all that, really, really good. And when you look at him, he's a combo corner. He can play the pass. He can cover, like I said, man and zone, but he also comes up and strikes you in the running game. He can tackle people. Proof of that, 64 tackles on the season with missing a little bit of time. 50 solo tackles, 3 tackles for loss, a quarterback hit. He had 1 sack, 2 forced fumbles at the corner spot, which is big. He's coming up. He's trying to punch the ball out, put his hat on it, play physical. He has 1 fumble return for 43 yards, and he had 2 interceptions this year for 30. And I think we saw in the Kansas City Chiefs game when, they probably rushed him back a little bit. And here's the thing, guys. The whole concussion deal is it goes both ways, and you can pass the test and everything, but you can't predict what will happen. And the hit that he took in the Kansas City game was probably worse than the hit he took on the onside kick in the Baltimore game. Unfortunately, Christian went out with the concussion, and you saw what happened to the Bills secondary when he was not playing. It put pressure on everybody else, and things just did not go well. But tremendous season by Christian Benford. We need to make sure we lock him up at some point, whether that's this year, during the season, whatever. We have one solid lockdown corner on this team. We need to find a complementary piece to him on the other side. I'm not sure it's on the roster right now. Rasul Douglas showed his age. Obviously, Elam has his issues. I don't know about Ingram. So they probably go try to find somebody. But my second Big O Show Tatonka Award for 2024, cornerback Christian Benford. So round of applause for Christian. And my third Tatonka Award for the Big O Show shouldn't shock anybody. It goes to a player that was drafted to be a receiving running back, a running back that was good in the passing game. And lo and behold, over time, he turned into one hell of a runner. And that guy would be James Cook. So running back James Cook is my third Tatonka Award for the Big O Show this year. James had 207 rushes, for 1,009 yards, 16 rushing touchdowns, 48 rushing first downs. He had 32 receptions on the year, and he was targeted 38 times, had 32 catches in those 38 targets for 250 yards, 2 touchdowns, 14 first downs in the passing game, only put the ball on the ground 1 time. And that is absolutely huge. When you looked at the Bills and the things that they lived and died on this season, that plus-minus ratio and turnovers was a huge difference. First place in the NFL by a large margin. And guys like James Cook protecting the football were a big part of it. When you look at James and some of the things he does, and James Cook, and the thing about Cook that's awesome, he's not a big back. He's not a big physical Derrick Henry kind of back. Well, then again, there's not many big physical backs like Derrick Henry, but you understand where I'm coming from. But 530 rushing yards that he had of his 1,009 were before contact, but 479 yards of his rushing yards were after contact. So he has an ability to break tackles, to bounce off of tackles, get through arm tackles, get extra yards after contact. So if there's only one weakness of James Cook, not a tremendous pass blocker in third down and passing situations. I would imagine that is the one area this offseason that the running backs coach, OC, Joe Brady, and those guys will really work on with James Cook. But again, that Buffalo Bills offensive line, with James Cook, the running game changed the face of the Bills this season, offensively and really team-wise, because I think if you looked at the way they ran the ball, it almost became an extension of their defense, keeping the ball away from opposing teams. So with that being said, my third Big O Show Tatonka Award goes to running back James Cook. We'll get a hoorah for him. My fourth Tatonka Award goes to none other than wide receiver Khalil Shakir. And when I look at Khalil Shakir and you watch him play, you understand just what a fire starter he is when he has the football. 100 targets this season, 76 catches, 821 yards. He was the leading yardage receiver, I believe, on the team. 4 touchdowns, 35 first downs. He was the third down security blanket for Josh Allen. When we needed a third down, more than likely he was going to Khalil Shakir. 10.6 scrimmage yards per touch. Didn't just catch the ball. He also returned kicks when he needed to. But once again, like James Cook, 1 fumble this season. Put it on the ground only 1 time. Awesome job by Shakir. He's one of the most versatile, complete receivers we have on this team. Trusted third down target. Makes plays happen. I didn't write down his run after contact stuff or his breaking tackle stuff. But as we know, when he has the ball in his hands, he's extremely hard to get on the ground. Shakir is a guy as a slot. And what's funny is everybody, and I saw it earlier in the comments, people are like, we need to go get Cooper Kupp. We've got new age Cooper Kupp. We got Shakir. We don't need another slot. We need to go ahead and get somebody that's going to stretch the field vertically. So when you start looking at wide receivers, folks, if you want to talk to on the Big O Show, you want to talk to me about it, they've got to get a vertical stretcher guy. They got to get a vertical field stretcher. They got to get somebody that can run downfield. We got enough possession receivers. We got enough slot receivers. Somebody has to put safeties in a bind downfield, and that's where they need to go wide receiver-wise. But when you look at Shakir, just a great season. And another guy like James Cook, like Benford, these are guys that not first-round picks or whatever. They're guys that are a little later-round picks. These are guys that grind and they work and they get after it and they get better every offseason. And the offseason is so important for players in development, especially nowadays with guys that are able to come to the stadium, come in, do so much. I know Shakir has a lot of documented stuff working with Eric Moulds, which obviously has helped him and has been awesome, picking the brain of a former Pro Bowl receiver, a former Buffalo Bill. But Shakir had a wonderful season. I expect him to continue to build on that. Hopefully he can work on some of the durability stuff, which is hard for a guy because this is the way he's built. But that is my third Tatonka award. That would be wide receiver, Boise State alum, Khalil Shakir. So we move on to the last Tatonka award. And you may laugh at this, but to me, this guy is on this award list because of the things that you can't see. And Bill Parcells used to talk about it all the time when Bill was talking about players and evaluating players, and a scout would be like, man, his vertical is this, and he runs this, and his hands are huge, and he catches it. He does all these things. Bill would pause and go, yeah, that's great. I can see that. But what about the things you can't see? And those things are intangibles. That's leadership. Okay, that's how you handle yourself off the field. That's in the locker room. That's going out and doing the dirty work, doing the things that nobody else wants to do. Tons and tons of special teams reps, allowing your starters and your guys like that to stay on the sideline and rest up because you're out there taking special teams reps. And I think you know where I'm going with this. My last Tatonka award of the 2024 season goes to Mack, Hollins, wide receiver. Mack had 50 targets this season, 31 receptions for only 378 yards. But like Chris Carter, all he does is catch touchdowns. He had 5 touchdowns. He led the receiving corps in touchdowns this season. And he also had 25 first downs. This is a glue guy. When coaches talk about dudes like this, they call these guys glue guys. And we've talked about it on the show in the past. McDermott's willingness to allow guys to be themselves and express their personalities within a team setting has been a game changer for this group. You see it with not just a guy like Mack Hollins, you see it with Deion Dawkins and others. And his personality coming through has allowed him to be comfortable. His comfort has, and the way he is has permeated through that locker room. And him being himself has made this team much, much better. And just an interesting stat, when Josh Allen throws the ball to Mack Hollins, he has a passer rating of 118.6. So obviously there's something there. But again, we talked about it, special teams. You want to make a wide receivers coach excited? Watch wideouts in the running game and what they do when blocking downfield and blocking corners. Mack Hollins blocks people downfield and corners better than anyone. Again, what is that? It's something I can't see. That's those intangibles. And when you look at a team like the Bills this season, having the success they did, the record they did, getting to the AFC Championship game once again, people want to talk about Josh. They want to talk about Deion. They want to talk about Christian. They want to talk about all these dudes, James Cook. The guys that aren't talked about enough, Mack Hollins. Those are the difference makers. Those are the blue-collar guys. And those are the guys that help you ultimately win championships. I know Mack is a free agent. I hope to God they re-sign him, because I think he's a tremendous asset for this football team. So real quick, I'll go through my list of the 2024 Big O Show Tatonka Awards. We'll do this every season. And like I said, this is a quick kind of fun list of accolades of guys that I thought really stepped up this season to get this team to where they were. They elevated their game. Some of them did things they've done in the past, but these guys have all elevated their game and brought this roster up to a level that deserved to be in a championship game. And hell, if things would have gone a little bit better, we could have been playing on Sunday. But first, Tatonka award goes Spencer Brown. Then we had Christian Benford, followed by James Cook, Khalil Shakir, and Mack Hollins. So congratulations to those guys. I don't have any cool Big O Show trophies or Buffalo trophies to send to them. If anybody sees them out and about, let them know they want a Tatonka award from the Big O Show. They might be excited. They'll probably go, who the hell's the Big O? But that's okay, man. That's okay. We have fun with it. So once again, we'll be on this offseason every Thursday unless something comes up, and I'll make sure I put it out there, because obviously the offseason things come up, and we can't always be on. But the way we're planning to do this is Sundays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays this offseason. Myself, Joe, and John, we're getting together here in the next month. We're going to plan next season, some of the things we're going to do. I'm excited about some of the things we've already talked about, which include training camp and getting to more games and things like that. But like I say earlier, folks, hit the like, hit the subscribe. Our success is predicated on you guys watching the shows and listening to the podcasts on any podcasting platform out there. And this one will be up tomorrow morning. So thanks again. It's been an awesome season. And hey, whether we like it or not, this is the 2025 offseason. It's time to talk about the 2025 club. Team 2024 is over with. And we're going to dive into the Bills quite a bit this offseason. So thanks again for listening. And we'll be back on Sunday night and again on Tuesday, and then Big O Show next Thursday. But I am the Big O for the Big O Show here on the Overreaction Buffalo Sports Network, powered by Believe. Check us out on all those podcast platforms if you missed the show, and tell your friends. And as always, folks, we appreciate you. We thank you for your time. Much love. Go Bills.
I'm still the same.